These are 25 Hollywood stars who crossed the line from playing gangsters to working with them. The studio system projected an image of flawless heroes and glamorous leading ladies across the globe. Behind the locked studio gates, organized crime controlled operations. Extortion, illegal gambling, and midnight meetings shaped the biggest careers in cinema history. The mob did not just inspire the movies, as they financed the actors, silenced the witnesses, and controlled the stages. From beloved comedians to celebrated Oscar winners, the entertainment industry paid a heavy tax to the underworld.
If you enjoy learning about the history of cinema, hit subscribe and the notification bell. We release videos like this every week.
George Raft grew up running numbers for New York gangs long before cameras ever rolled. Hollywood executives hired him to play tough guys, but he actively maintained his underworld friendships, particularly with syndicate leader Bugsy Siegel. This authentic connection meant Raft eventually introduced other actors directly into the mob's dangerous orbit. Cary Grant soon found himself sitting at Siegel's poker tables across Los Angeles. Studio bosses despised this fraternization, so they deployed expensive fixers to keep these late-night gambling habits out of the daily papers. That executive containment strategy worked for several years, which is why the public rarely saw the truth behind the glamorous facades. Crime syndicates quickly realized they could use these famous faces as living billboards for their illegal casinos, and that forced a permanent merger between organized crime and high society, altering how the entertainment industry operated. Frank Sinatra built an entertainment empire with his vocal cords, but the FBI tracked his exact movements for 40 straight years. Chicago boss Sam Giancana viewed the singer as a highly valuable personal asset. He secured Sinatra premium stage time at syndicate-controlled venues across the country. This lucrative relationship paid off handsomely, so the singer performed exclusively at mob-owned properties in Las Vegas. The government eventually caught on to these favors, which meant Sinatra lost his Nevada casino license in 1963. He flatly refused to abandon his underworld benefactors during the hearings. That intense loyalty cemented his reputation as a premier mafia middleman in the music business. Investigators accumulated thousands of pages of surveillance reports, yet they never managed to put the famous crooner behind bars. His ability to navigate both the spotlight and the shadows remains unmatched today.
Working with the outfit brought large financial rewards, and that tempted Sinatra into bringing his closest friends along for the ride. Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. regularly headlined the Sands Hotel, a sprawling property heavily backed by illicit syndicate money. Peter Lawford joined the group shortly after, serving a very specific purpose for the bosses. He acted as a direct social bridge between the criminal underworld and the powerful Kennedy political dynasty. Syndicate bosses believed they could buy presidential favors through these celebrity introductions, so they funded the performers lavishly. Their political strategy backfired when the administration appointed Robert Kennedy as Attorney General. He immediately launched an aggressive war against organized crime, which forced the entertainers to quickly distance themselves from the very men who built their careers. The golden era of the Rat Pack crashed into a harsh political reality. Female stars faced an entirely different kind of pressure from syndicate bosses during this era. Marilyn Monroe reigned as the biggest star on Earth, but mob associate Gianni Russo later claimed the outfit used her as a political pawn. They orchestrated her proximity to the president, hoping to gather blackmail material against the White House. Lana Turner experienced a much more violent collision with this world when she dated Johnny Stompanato. He operated as an enforcer for Los Angeles kingpin Mickey Cohen. This dangerous criminal physically abused the actress repeatedly, so her teenage daughter eventually stepped in with a fatal knife strike to protect her mother. Studio executives promised to protect their leading ladies from harm, but they frequently looked the other way when powerful men demanded introductions at private parties. Such vulnerability highlighted the cruel nature of the system. Playing a gangster on screen often requires intense research, and that pursuit of authenticity pushed several notable actors too close to the real thing. Robert De Niro wanted his 1999 performance in Analyze This to feel completely genuine. He spent weeks hanging out with Gambino associate Anthony "Fat Andy" Ruggiano to study his mannerisms. Joe Pesci grew up around similar figures in New Jersey, which is why his violent cinematic outbursts carry such accuracy. Crime families loved watching these men portray their lifestyle on the big screen, so they granted them unprecedented access to their private social clubs. This blurred the line between Hollywood fantasy and criminal reality completely. These performers learned exactly how a true soldier speaks and moves, returning to the set with accurate character studies. They transformed real-world observations into award-winning performances that audiences still celebrate today. James Caan took his preparation for The Godfather further than anyone else on set. He formed a lifelong bond with the Colombo crime family that lasted long after filming ended. Caan eventually offered to pay bail for high-ranking mobster Andrew Russo in 2011, openly calling the man his brother in court documents. Marlon Brando and Al Pacino faced immense pressure from actual capos during the production of that exact same movie. Mario Puzo's script deeply angered the five families of New York, who felt the story disrespected their heritage. Producers had to negotiate directly with armed extortionists just to keep the cameras rolling. Those tense sit-downs saved the film from being shut down, but it meant the Mafia co-produced the greatest cinematic work in American history. Art imitated life under the threat of gunfire. Sometimes casting directors skipped the research phase entirely and just hired actual criminals. Lenny Montana played the hitman Luca Brasi in The Godfather, but his imposing physique did not come from a gym. He spent the 1970s working as a bodyguard and arsonist for the Colombo family. Gianni Russo secured his role as Carlo Rizzi in the film by calling in favors from his underworld mentors. This hiring trend continued into the modern era with Tony Darrow, a familiar face from Goodfellas. He pleaded guilty in 2011 to helping the Gambino syndicate execute a violent extortion plot in upstate New York. Producers loved the authenticity these men brought to the frame. That preference resulted in actual felons receiving official Screen Actors Guild cards alongside classically trained theater veterans. The boundary between acting and actual criminal behavior vanished on these sets. Las Vegas operated as the premier neutral territory for entertainers, but singing on stage often required unsavory business partnerships. Wayne Newton dominated the desert entertainment scene by 1980, catching the immediate attention of federal investigators. They accused the singer of acting as a secret financial frontman for the Gambino family during his purchase of the Aladdin Hotel. Tony Bennett faced a far more dangerous situation during the previous decade. He reportedly angered a high-ranking casino boss over a dispute involving a woman, and that forced the storied crooner into a temporary exile from the desert entirely. Tom Jones performed regularly in these same syndicate-controlled showrooms, navigating a complex web of unwritten rules. Every entertainer understood the arrangement clearly, knowing you could earn millions under the neon lights, but dangerous men in the shadows signed your paychecks. Nevada's desert oasis thrived strictly because these performers looked the other way every single night. The strict oath of silence does not just apply to made men. Jerry Orbach spent 12 years playing a righteous police detective on television, yet his real life featured a much darker chapter. He witnessed the infamous 1972 assassination of crime boss Joe Gallo at a busy Manhattan restaurant. Detectives begged him to identify the shooters, but Orbach maintained total silence to prevent violent retaliation against his family. Liza Minnelli and Elizabeth Hurley also navigated the fringes of this dangerous society through their romantic and social connections. Comedy star Jackie Gleason filled his television sets with men who worked night shifts at illicit gambling parlors. Knowing the truth carried a heavy burden for these celebrities, which meant they learned to smile for the cameras while keeping their mouths shut behind closed doors. Survival in the industry required mastering the art of willful ignorance. The danger never really disappeared as the decades passed, though the tactics evolved greatly. Action star Steven Seagal discovered this the hard way in the early 2000s, when old associates demanded a large cut of his earnings. Gambino associates attempted to extort hundreds of thousands of dollars from his film revenues, which meant Seagal had to testify against them in federal court. Pop icon Madonna brushed against this exact same world when she dated Miami club owner Chris Paciello. He cultivated a glamorous public image, but federal agents eventually imprisoned him for racketeering and his role in a fatal home invasion. Hollywood completely changed its corporate structure over the last century, but the underworld always finds new methods to extract its tax from the rich and famous. Individual names change, but the extortion racket simply adapts to the times. The relationship between the silver screen and the criminal underworld remains one of the most fascinating chapters in modern history. From running illegal casinos to funding cinematic projects, the Mafia shaped pop culture from the shadows. These 25 stars proved that the brightest lights often hide the darkest secrets. If you enjoyed this video about the history of cinema, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. We break down unique stories just like this every single week. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.